fury of Lewis's attack.
What's happening, my people? It's Cast Sports again, back for another afternoon with the family. Now, as usual, before I get started, let me give a shout out to the JBT community. It's just boxing talk. We're a group of people who just love to talk boxing. And we're always looking for others to join us. And you don't have to have a podcast. The only requirement is you just have to love to talk boxing. That's all. Miss Cass, hashtag JBT. Technique in the building. Mike Mazik. Salute to everyone. And welcome to another episode of Cast Sports, The Box Storian. Today, great heavyweight fights and fighters. Great heavyweight fights and fighters. And you know what time it is. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's The Box Storian bringing you all that boxing history. Boxing is the greatest sport of them all. That's why we love it. Can't get enough of it. How's everyone today? This is the Wednesday afternoon hump day edition of Cast Sports, The Box Storian. 100% technique. And if Ali wouldn't have had that 3-year layoff, Frazier probably would have never beat him. Probably would have went undefeated, you know. But yeah, that's Billy Manila, the greatest fight of all time. My first fight that I watched. So, you know, I was sold on boxing. actually disappointed when I saw a couple other fights. I thought every fight was going to be like that. Knock down, drag out, almost kill each other in the ring. Both end up in the hospital. Yeah, so first couple fights after watching the Thriller in Manila, I was disappointed. Like, what happened? But salute to everybody today. We're gonna be talking about the greatest heavyweight fighters of every decade from 1880 on up into the 2000s, and then the greatest heavyweight fights from every decade. And then if we have time at the end, we're going to look at some of the other just overall best fighters in every decade from any weight class. But first, it's going to be heavyweights. Okay, but first, I got some more highlights of boxing history. We'll take us to 2:30, then we'll start the show. Because I used to tell everybody we don't start the subject of the show until 2:30. So then now a lot of people show up at 2:30. So maybe I shouldn't have said that. But it is what it is. Or it ain't what it ain't. Okay. So let's talk about some highlights of boxing history for a minute. We're in 2012 now. 2012. Okay. So on February 18th, 2012. February 18th, 2012. Vitaly Klitschko defeats Derek Chisora by unanimous decision. Now, a post-fight brawl between Chisora and former division champion David Haye would see Chisora have his boxing license withdrawn. Yeah, him and Haye got into it after Chisora fought Klitschko. Okay, but then on July 14th, Chisora had his license taken, but he was given a license by the Luxembourg, Germany Boxing Federation, and him and Haye fought over there. And David Haye beat Chisora by a 5th round knockout in a fight. It was licensed by the Luxembourg Boxing Federation. Okay, that was on July 14th, 2012. So Haye ended up knocking him out after the brawl they had. Okay. 2013. Highlights of boxing history. 2013. On March 9th, 2013, B-Hop, Bernard Hopkins defeats Tavoris Cloud by unanimous decision to win the IBF light heavyweight title, breaking his own record as the oldest fighter to win a major world title in boxing history. Because remember, he was 46 when he broke Big George's. So in this fight in 2013, he was 48. So he broke his own record. And he would break it again later on, remember? Yep, at 49. Then on December 14th, 2013, Marcos Maidana defeats Adrian Broner by unanimous decision, which would be voted upset of the year by Ring Magazine. Yeah, that was a big one at that time when Maidana, and he roughed Broner up, remember? Roughed him up bad. And that's the fight where everybody says that Broner was never the same after that, remember? That's when he stopped letting his hands go and all that after the Maidana. And it was an upset. Broner was favored in that one. Yep. And yeah, Frazier was a great champion, though. Only beaten by Foreman and Ali. Had 4 losses, 2 to Ali, 2 to Foreman. And look at the era he fought in. And those were the only 2 that could beat Smoking Joe. Yeah. But like I say, Foreman was a terrible style matchup for Smoking Joe, because Joe only knew one way. That's coming forward and, with that power and reaching everything Foreman had on. Just a terrible matchup for Smoking Joe. That's why in the 2 fights, I think they went a total of 7 rounds. The first fight went 2, the second fight went 5. Foreman knocked Smoking Joe down a total of 8 times in those 2 fights, 7 rounds. Just a terrible style matchup for Smoking Joe. That's why Cus D'Amato told Mike Tyson, never fight George Foreman. because Cuss told him the same thing that happened to Joe Frazier will happen to you. And Mike remembered that. Even when Foreman came back for a second stint in the 90s, Mike did not fight him. Mike remembered what Cuss told him. And he remembered what happened to Joe Frazier. 2014. April the 29th. No, April the 19th, 2014. I'm in the middle of changing desks and didn't get my new desk in, so I'm sitting on the side of the bed doing today's show. But I have my new desk in here tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. Took the old desk out, but didn't get the new desk put in. So I'm sitting on the side of the bed doing it. But I told Miss Cass that everything must be okay, because I said, if I don't hear from you, everything sounds okay. If it ain't right, let me know. Well, she was probably supposed to put a thumbs up in there. Is it in there? She must have forgot. Where's my thumbs up at, Miss Cass? Yeah, but I'm sitting on the side. That's worse than Jay Hardcore sitting. What he say, he was sitting on a speaker or something. But I think the side of my bed is more comfortable than that chair Jay Hardcore had. But yeah, where were we? 2014, April 19th, 2014. B-Hop again. Bernard Hopkins defeats Beibut Shumanov by split decision to unify the WBA and IBF light heavyweight titles. And this fight is when he became the oldest boxer in history to become champion. He was 49 at that point. Yep. And that's where the record still stands to this day. 49 years old, Bernard Hopkins. Wow, 49 years old, still winning championships in boxing. The roughest, toughest sport of all. That's saying something about that man's conditioning. Okay, let's go to 2015. Didn't have much in 2014. Okay, 2015. Okay, January 17th. Deontay Wilder defeats Bermane Stilvern by unanimous decision to win the WBC heavyweight title. Though he was the first American heavyweight title holder since Shannon Briggs in 2007. 8 years without an American heavyweight champion. That wasn't good, you know. And we haven't had an American undisputed champion since the 90s. Holyfield, 3-belt. Over almost 30 years. Yeah. And I think Wilder, he was the last American champion up to now, too. Haven't had another one for a minute. June 20th, 2015. Okay? Here we're going to be talking about the heavyweights today, though. But on June 20th, former unified super middleweight champion, SOG, Andre Ward, returned to the ring after a 19-month-long layoff, almost 2 years, and he won by stopping Paul Smith in the 9th round. Wouldn't be too much longer before SOG gave it up altogether. He was out almost 2 years at that point. Yeah. July 14th, 2015. IBF super middleweight champion Carl Froch retires from boxing. Yep. Carl Froch retired. Yeah, we did a profile on Carl a couple of weeks ago, remember? Retired in 2015, July 14th. Then on September 12th, 2015, Floyd Mayweather Jr. defeats Andre Berto by unanimous decision to retain the WBC, IBF, and the ring welterweight titles. This would be the final world title fight of Floyd's career, as he would announce his retirement in the ring after the fight. Yeah, he was never in any more. That was his last title fight. Money Mayweather, Money May. Yeah. June 14th. Wait a minute. That was September. No, when was it? September 12th, 2015. Yep. Then on November 18th, 2015. November 28th. Can't read my own handwriting. That's bad. November 28th, 2015. Vladimir Klitschko is defeated by British boxer Tyson Fury by unanimous decision, ending an almost decade-long reign as the heavyweight champion of the world. That's why no Americans couldn't get it. Vladimir had it all that time. Almost 10 years straight. Fury had to get it up off of him, the British boxer. Okay, let's go to 2016. Still got about 10 minutes. Okay, 2016. June the 3rd, 2016. Jumping around. Okay, Francisco Vargas had a draw with Orlando Salido, which would be voted Fight of the Year by Ring Magazine. Yeah, that one was Fight of the Year. June 26th. Unified WBA, WBO, and the ring heavyweight champion, Tyson Fury, and his cousin, Hughie Fury, tested positive for the banned substance, nandrolone. Okay, that's when Fury got busted, tested positive. 2016. Then on September 23rd, 2016, Tyson Fury postponed his rematch with Vladimir Klitschko for the second time after being declared medically unfit. Medically unfit. Okay. October 12th, 2016. Ace, hardcore boxing news in the building. What's up, Jay Hardcore? We doing a little, always do a little highlights of boxing history up to 2:30. Just some different things that happened over the years in our sport. And we came all the way from the 20s. It's Jay Hardcore hashtag JBT, the founder of the JBT. We're all the way up to 2016. And Ace in the building. Salute, Ace. How are you today? Good to see you. Good to see you. Okay. Now, where were we? Okay. Let me see. Got my notes right here. Okay, December 17th was the last one for 2016. What happened on December 17th, y'all? Let's see. 2016. December 17th. Oleksandr Usyk defeats Zabisco Makuni by 9th round knockout. That's not the one I was looking for, though. This is the one I was looking for on December 17th. In his final professional fight, Bernard Hopkins was knocked out of the ring by Joe Smith Jr., giving him an 8th round TKO victory. The only stoppage loss of B-Hop's career. Yep. In his last fight, he suffered the only stoppage loss of his career. The man was 50-something, wasn't he? Because he won his last title in 2014 at 49, yeah. So 17, he was 52. Wow. Level 16, he was like 51, 52. 2017. We got about 5 more minutes. We're going to start today's show. Okay, I dropped my pen. There it is. Hey, Jay, remember you was talking about your chair you used to do your show from? I took my old desk down, get ready to put my new desk up, and didn't get it in. Guess where I'm doing my show from? Sitting on the side of the bed. Yeah, I am doing today's show from the side of the bed. But I have my new desk in tomorrow. Okay. June 17th, 2017. Only thing, I can't sit back, but it's all good. June 17th, Guillermo Rigondeaux retained his WBA super bantamweight title with a no contest with Moises Flores due to an incorrect referee call after the first round. So they went back and changed it, and Rigondeaux, the head gave the fight to Flores, but then they called it a no contest after due to an incorrect referee call after going back and looking at it. They need instant replay in there permanently. They do it in some states, but it's not everywhere. It should be universal. Yeah. July 8th, we're going to finish up 2017, and then we're going to get on to the show, okay? July 8th, 2017. The World Boxing Super Series is held at the Grimaldi Forum in Monaco for the two inaugural tournaments at cruiserweight and super middleweight. August 3rd. We're in 2017 now. August 3rd. Former long reigning heavyweight champion Vladimir Klitschko announced on his official website and social media channels that he was retiring from boxing. Vladimir Klitschko, August 3rd, 2017, retired from the sport. Then a couple of days later, on August 6th, 2017, former two-division champion, water-headed Timothy Bradley, officially announced his retirement from professional boxing, having not fought since his loss to Pacquiao more than a year earlier. Yeah, Tim Bradley. Sorry, Tim. Tim Bradley announced his retirement from boxing. He used that big head, too, when he was in the ring. He had button people. But he retired August 6th, 2017. In all seriousness. August 17th, 2017. Former pound-for-pound #1 and three-division champion Sugar Shane Mosley announced his retirement after a 24-year career. Sugar Shane had 24 years in the ring wars. Wow, longevity. Great boxer. International Boxing Hall of Fame member, first ballot, by the way. August 19th, 2017. Terrence Bud Crawford defeats Julius Ndongo by a third-round knockout to become the undisputed junior welterweight champion, the first four-belt junior welterweight undisputed champion in boxing history. Okay? First four-belt, Bud Crawford. And since then, Bud has become undisputed in another division, only one of 5 to be four-belt in 2 divisions, remember? Welterweight. Okay? September 16th, 2017. Billy Joe Saunders defeats Willie Monroe Jr. by unanimous decision. That's not the one I was looking for. This is one. The highly anticipated middleweight title fight between Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez ends in a very, 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 very controversial draw. Okay. I thought Triple G won it, as do a lot of other people. Just a couple more. That's the 21st. I can't read my own. I don't know if that's the 21st or the 24th. Let me see. I think it's the 21st. Ain't no 24th. September 21st, 2017. Unified light heavyweight champion Andre Ward announced his retirement from boxing at the age of 33. Yep, SOG retired. He had just took like almost a 2-year layoff before that, remember? And he came back and fought like a couple fights, and then that was it. And finally, December 2nd. Still got 5 minutes. December 2nd, 2017. Let me see, did anybody come in? Yes. Thomas Hill came in. What's up, T Hill? Thomas Hill, hashtag JBT, and Al Booker. Man. I'm going to get forward sure enough. Miss Cass listening or missing people. Damn. Why you have to go get me forward, T Hill? You came in right there. What's up, Al Booker? How are you today, bro? And the legendary Thomas Hill, hashtag JBT, in the building. We're going to be talking about some heavyweights in a few minutes. Best heavyweight for every decade going back to 1880 into the 2000s, and the best heavyweight fight. Okay? I don't know if to do them fighter, or just do all fighters and then do all fights. I'm going to do it that way. Go through the fighters first and then go back and do the fights. And then if we have time at the end, we're going to look at the best fighter overall for every decade. But first, it's going to be heavyweight. But salute Ace and Thomas Hill. Glad y'all could join us today for this Wednesday afternoon hump day edition of Cash Sports, the Box Story. Yeah, we're going to, did I do December 2nd for 2017? No, I don't think so. That's the last one. Let's do that and move on to the show. December 2nd. There we go. Saddam Ali defeats Miguel Cotto by unanimous decision to win the WBO junior middleweight title. Now Cotto would retire after this fight. Yeah, that was Miguel's last fight or loss. I would have came back. I would want to go out on a win, man. But hey, he had a great career. International Boxing Hall of Famer. Right? Is Miguel in there? If he isn't, he should be. So that was 2007. Yeah, he should be in by now. I think it's 5 years, right? 5-year grace period before you go in. So he's been out 8 years. So yeah, he should be in there. Miguel should have been a first ballot. Yeah. Top 10 Puerto Rican fighter. On my top 10. Miguel might be top 5 Puerto Rican fighter. Yeah. Okay, let's get ready to start talking about these heavyweights. The best heavyweight from every decade, and we're going to talk about the best fights for every decade. Okay? All right, let me see here. What's today's show about, y'all? I forgot. No, I'm just kidding. Best heavyweight fighters and fights. I'm going to pull it up. It jump right in there. It is right there. I love it when a plan comes together. Jump right in. And we're going to jump right in in 1 minute. Bad luck to start before 2:30. Oh, man, I didn't show my historic picture. It was Derek Chisora and David Haye, because remember they had the brawl after Haye fought Klitschko and then Vitali. And then they took Chisora's license because he started all the nonsense. But then he got a license over there from some secondary sanctioning body over there in Germany, and they had to fight in Germany. And Haye knocked his butt out in the 5th round. Chisora is a very colorful character, though. Yeah, but Haye still knocked him out in the 5th round. I was supposed to show this while I was talking about these fights. There you go. Is that them? Yeah. There you go. Chisora on the left, David Haye on the right. Yeah. The UK fighters. Yeah, the profile Friday is the Hitman. Not the Motor City Cobra Hitman. Ricky Hatton. The UK Hitman. Yeah. Very popular UK fighter. They traveled everywhere with Ricky Hatton. Ricky Hatton could have fought on the moon somewhere. Them UK fans would have been right up there yelling and howling and screaming. They followed him. Okay, here we go. 2:30. I was trying to stall. It's 2:30 now. Okay. The greatest heavyweight from every decade, all the way back to 1880, we're coming on up into the 2000s. And for the decade of the 1880s, is John L. Sullivan. John L. was the last bare knuckles champion. And then when they went to gloves, he was the first glove heavyweight champion. But overall, last bare knuckles champion, first glove champion, any division. John L. Sullivan, there he is. Okay. Now, John L. Sullivan captured the bare knuckles heavyweight championship of the world in February of 1882. He demolished the much larger Paddy Ryan in 9 one-sided rounds. All of them was one-sided. They called Sullivan the Boston Strong Boy, right? He would go on to popularize the use of gloves, thus helping to gradually transition boxing from its shadowy, illegal status into the major professional sport that it would become in the next century, which was the last one, the 2000s, right? Now, along the way, Sullivan became America's first sports superstar. His carousing and drinking were as legendary as his mule kick right hand. Yep, he was a partier too, John L. was. The high-spirited Sullivan earned more money entertaining crowds from the stage than he did fighting in the ring. Yeah, very colorful character. In 1889, he won the last bare knuckle world championship fight when he stopped Jake Kilrain in 75 rounds in the stifling July heat of Mississippi. That was a fight you was asking me about, Jay. And during that fight, in the corner, Kilrain wasn't drinking water. He was drinking rum. Yep, he was drinking rum. Mm-hmm. And that was quite a fight, man. Yeah. They had it on some field, on some big-time politician's property because it was illegal, right? And they brought people in from other areas by train. And the local police chief was the one that was supposed to be stopping the fight. But guess what? He was at the fight. He was at the fight. So, yeah. So the fight went on 75 rounds, though, right? But Sullivan would hold a heavyweight crown for a decade before losing it to technically adept James J. Corbett in September 1892. Yep. And then the best fighter for the 1890s is that very same James J. Corbett that took the title from Sullivan. Mm-hmm. James J. Corbett, 1890s. Okay. Sullivan. James J. Corbett. Here's James J. Old picture, but that's him on the left-hand side. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. James J. Corbett, best heavyweight fighter in the 1890s. Now, James J. Corbett was a first-generation son of Irish immigrants who was born and raised in San Francisco in an era when the city was a boxing hotbed, right? He excelled in every sport he attempted as a youth, and he had the intellectual ability to launch a career as a banker in his early 20s, right? Mm-hmm. But Gentleman Jim found his true destiny when he began taking boxing lessons at San Francisco's famed Olympic Club. In short order, he became the club's heavyweight champion. Yep. And the Olympic Club was supported by wealthy boxing aficionados, wealthy boxing aficionados, right? And his championship carried a nice cash prize. Now, in the boxing world of the time, in the 1890s, to win the Olympic Club championship made a fighter a legitimate challenger for the world title. Yeah, the Olympic Club championship was like a stepping stone to the world title, right? And James J. won that. Okay. Now, Corbett challenged the legendary John L. Sullivan for his title in September 1892. Now, few people gave the 26-year-old challenger much chance against Sullivan, who outweighed him by 34 pounds. Sullivan outweighed Corbett by 34 pounds, right? And that was according to Nat Fleischer's the heavyweight championship book he wrote. Nat Fleischer was the founder of Ring Magazine. But Corbett unveiled a tactically brilliant skill set. He used speed and angles to outmaneuver Sullivan before knocking him out in the 21st round. Okay, that was when no decision, was no limits on rounds, and wasn't no 3 minutes. The round ended when somebody went down. The fight ended when one fighter couldn't continue, and Sullivan couldn't continue after round 21. Okay, and then Corbett would hold the belt for 5 years before he lost it to Bob Fitzsimmons in 1897. Okay, we moved to the 1900s. Heavyweight fighter of the decade for the 1900s is Jack Johnson, the Galveston Giant. There he is, Al Booker. Jack Johnson, the Galveston Giant. Okay? Now, for the first decade of the 20th century, there are two solid contenders for greatest heavyweight. There was Jim Jeffries and history's first African-American champion, Jack Johnson. Now, Jeffries was a gigantic bear of a man, and he was extremely athletic for his size, right? He was mentored by James J. Corbin, and he served as his sparring partner in 1899, right? Now he knocked out Bob Fitzsimmons to win the crown, and he held it until 1906, when he retired undefeated for lack of a worthy opponent. Couldn't find nobody worthy that they thought could beat him, so he went on and retired undefeated. Now in Jeffrey's wake, Tommy Burns emerged as the next recognized champion, Australian guy, right? And Burns held the belt for a number of years. But although all through the decade, Jack Johnson was traveling the country and building his reputation as a first-rate heavyweight, But, Jack was black, so, if he hadn't been black, he would have probably got a title shot. But it took him longer than it should have, because of his race, right? And Jack did hold a colored heavyweight championship, too. So, in Nat Fleischer's The Heavyweight Championship, Johnson is described as offering Burns free punches when they fought. Wait, I missed the paragraph, I'm sorry. In December 1908, Johnson faced Burns in Australia and not only beat him, but utterly humiliated him, verbally taunting him for 14 rounds, cutting him to ribbons and swelling his face before finally knocking him out. Now, in his book, Nat Fleischer wrote, the founder of Ring Magazine, The Heavyweight Champion, he said, Johnson is described as offering Burns free punches, looking at him with his hands down right in front of him and telling him, poor Tommy, who told you you were a fighter? Okay, that's how Johnson was, he flaunted it. Now, Johnson's ascendancy to the championship created panic in the racist America of the time. And he seemed to revel in provoking it, right? Yeah. He flaunted his wealth and he married a white woman in an era when such unions were illegal in much of the country, right? In 1910, James Jeffries was convinced to come out of retirement to face Johnson. So the white people recruited James Jeffries to come out because James Jeffries retired undefeated, remember? He couldn't find a worthy opponent. So the white people recruited him to come out of retirement to take this title away from this arrogant black champion, right? So James J. Jeffries came out of retirement to face Johnson. And at that time, this was the biggest fight in boxing history. And Johnson knocked out Jeffries in 15 rounds in Reno, Nevada. Yep. That was the first Great White Hope. I think that's where that came from. Okay, so we go to the 1910s. Okay, 1910s. It's Sam Langford. There's Sam. That was a bad man. Thought up as the best fighter ever to never win a championship. I don't even think he got a chance at a title. He did have the colored championship. Okay. But the regular one, I don't think Sam ever even got a shot at that. Jack Johnson wouldn't fight him. Jack fought him for the colored championship, but he wouldn't fight. Because when Jack became the regular champion, he picked up the same thing that the white fighters were doing. Jack wouldn't fight the black fighters. And he had the same things used against him, right? But for some reason, he started doing the same thing when he became champion. But 1910s was Sam Langford, okay? Now, Jack Johnson was officially the heavyweight champion for the first half of the 1910s, decade of the 1910s. But he fought infrequently, and he forced the substandard level of competition. He faced the substandard level of competition, Jack Johnson did, okay? Now, racist authorities in the United States tried to use the Mann Act to legally harass the champion, which forced him to flee abroad, okay? And he finally dropped the belt to Jeff Willard in 1915 in a fight he later claimed to have thrown. That's what they tried to say at the time, but he denied it. But finally he admitted that he threw it in 1950. He finally admitted that he threw the fight, okay? But eyewitnesses like boxing historian Nat Fleischer have expressed doubts about the claim. Either way, Willard was definitely not the top heavyweight of the decade, right? In terms of talent and resume, the four best heavyweights of this decade were all African Americans who were never given the opportunity to fight for the heavyweight belt. They were Joe Jeanette, Sam McVeigh, Harry Wills, and Sam Langford. Yeah, what's his name? Jess Willard couldn't even carry none of their spit bucket, man. Yeah, but they weren't given the chance because of their race. Now, Jeanette and McVeigh fought perhaps the greatest fight in history. That fight is going to be on when I get to the great best fights of the decade, okay? Yeah. Jeanette and McVeigh fought perhaps the greatest fight in history in Paris, France in 1909. This fight lasted 48 rounds. It was a 48-round war that featured, guess what? 38 knockdowns, okay? 38 knockdowns in this fight. Now, Jack Johnson avoided all four of these men. So they spent the second decade of the 20th century having to fight each other repeatedly. And by the end of the decade, the youngest of the bunch, Wills, had established himself as the best of the group. He would go on to be among the top three heavyweights of the 1920s as well. But for the decade as a whole, the honors should fall to Sam Langford, okay? Standing under 5 feet 8 inches tall, he fought from lightweight all the way up to heavyweight during his legendary career, okay? He was a technical master with unreal punching power. He had to be ranked as among the greatest pound-for-pound fighters in history and one of the best fighters to never win a world title, Sam Langford, okay? And you know, 1920s, who else? Who else? The Manasseh Mauler, Jack Dempsey. Jack Dempsey, best heavyweight fighter of the 1920s. Okay. Let me see what the appreciation button looking like. Oh, good. It's good. Okay. Yeah, Jack Dempsey. Now, Jack Dempsey was not only the top heavyweight of the 1920s, he was also the top sports star of the decade, with the possible exceptions of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, okay? Now, the Manasseh Mauler, with his thrilling whirlwind style of attack, emerged as the perfect icon of the Roaring '20s, right? The prosperity of post-World War I America, combined with breakthroughs in technology like radio, to establish a golden era of professional sports. Yeah, he was involved in him and George Carpenter was the first fight on radio, 1921. But throughout the decade, Dempsey would consistently set records for attendance and gate receipts. He was in the first $1 million fight. Okay? That was the same fight that was the first fight on radio, him and George Carpenter. Now, Dempsey captured the title from Jess Willard in 1919. He demolished him. And Willard was much larger than Dempsey, right? In this fight, it was a fight that rivals George Foreman's destruction of Joe Frazier for the most dominant win in heavyweight championship boxing history. Yeah, it was bad. Al Booker saw it, yeah. Al Booker can tell you how bad Jack Dempsey beat Jess Willard. Tell him, AB. Now, Dempsey would hold the belt for 7 years until dropping back-to-back decisions against Gene Tunney in 1926 and 1927. In 1930s was when the Brown Bomber came on the scene. The Brown Bomber. Joe Louis. Defiant Arnie One in the building. Crush the Legend in the building. 6 o'clock a.m. Monday through Friday. Man, I woke up like 8 o'clock today. Missed Crush the Legend. Whole day messed up, man. Damn. But yeah, coffee and donuts with Crush the Legend. 6 a.m. Monday through Friday. Salute, Crush. Define Arnie won in the building. That's the JBT representative in Puerto Rico. Okay, did a fine job on the Jaleel. Was it Perro? And I forgot the guy's name from New York that Perro fought. You know him, who was it? Somebody put it in there. Define Arnie did a great job down there, man, interviewing and everything, and just our representative of all fights in Puerto Rico. And that was his first one. And he looked like a 20-year vet. And now he can't wait to do the next one. Who was it? Liam Perro and Richardson Hitchens. How can I forget that? Richardson Hitchens. Yeah. Hitchens won it, but great job by Define Arnie down there. Okay. Can't wait for the next one. Okay. Now, 1930s was the Brown Bomber. Joe Louis. There he is. Joe Louis. Best heavyweight of the 1930s. Now, Gene Tunney retired as world champion in 1929. And for the first part of the 1930s, the heavyweight crown fell into relative obscurity, as it was held by a series of worthy but lesser champions. And the Depression was kicking off then, what's going on then, you know. And yeah, it wasn't a whole lot of boxing really going on, to tell you the truth. In July 1930, German Max Schmeling won the vacant title from Jack Sharkey on a foul, which has the rank among the low points in the storied history of the heavyweight division. Now, Sharkey won the rematch by decision in July 1932, right? And then he dropped the belt to the gigantic but technically primitive Primo Carnera in June 1933 in a fight that many boxing historians view as a possible dive. Yeah, because Primo Carnera was controlled by the mob, right? And if you didn't take their instructions and lose to him, you not only lose a fight, you might lose your life. Okay, so yeah. Now the heavyweight in Ring Magazine, in that fight is the heavyweight championship. He also notes that Sharkey's corner at the time claimed Carnera had a foreign object hidden in his gloves. And Carnera did participate in professional wrestling too, so he was used to that. Had a foreign object. You know how they pulling stuff out their trunks. He had it in his glove. Anyway, Carnera was knocked out in 11 rounds by Max Baer in June 1934. That's when the Mafia had got from behind him, and he thought he could really fight, right? But he didn't know the Mafia was making people take dives. But then when the Mafia got from behind him, he found out he really couldn't fight. He got knocked out by Max Baer in 1934. In June 1935, Cinderella Man, James Braddock, scored one of the biggest upsets in boxing history to capture the belt from Baer by decision. Meanwhile, Joe Louis had emerged as the most exciting knockout puncher since Jack Dempsey. But a generation had passed since Jack Johnson, and no African American had been allowed to even fight for the title since Jack Johnson. Because after Jack Johnson, they said, no way. We are not letting any more black people have his crown, because Jack Johnson he really flaunted it, man. Married a white woman and in the ring taunting them and everything. So they was like, nah. But you know, Joe Louis was entirely different from Jack Johnson. And plus he was groomed not to be like him. His handlers made sure. But Joe had a whole different personality anyway. Now, still, Louis' worthiness could not be denied, right? So in 1935, he knocked out Carnera and Baer. In 1936, he suffered the first setback of his career, losing by round 12 knockout to Schmeling, right? The German. And despite this loss, he was back in the ring 2 months later, knocking out Sharkey. Okay? I thought the music had stopped. Music stopped, I stopped. There it is. Okay. In June 1937, Louis captured the world title by knocking out Braddock. In June 1938, with World War II looming, he extracted his revenge against Schmeling, destroying Hitler's favorite boxer in 1 round, okay? That was almost as bad as Jesse Owens did, Hitler running around the track over there in Germany in front of him, winning 4 gold medals. It really hurt Hitler when Joe Louis knocked Max Schmeling out. They said when Max Schmeling got home, they punished him by making him go in the army. He lucky he didn't lose his life. Okay. Then in the process, Joe Louis became a national hero after knocking out Smelly, and the first black man ever truly embraced and cheered for by white Americans, the Brown Bomber, Joe Louis. Okay. And in the 1940s, guess who the best heavyweight of the decade was? For the 1940s, the best heavyweight of the decade? Joe Louis. Joe Louis. Okay. Now with World War II dominating the first half of the 1940s, boxing took a back burner. Now, Louis defended his belt successfully 13 times between 1940 and 1942, but he then enlisted in the army and spent the war performing traveling exhibitions to entertain his fellow troops. He didn't fight from 42 to 46. Okay. Now, post-World War II, Louis was a shadow of his earlier self, but he still rates as the best heavyweight of the decade. In December 1947, he won a split decision over future champion, Jersey Joe Walcott, that he probably didn't deserve. And Jersey Joe said, as they were going to their corners, they passed each other at the 15-round bell, and Louis told him that he beat him. Louis didn't admit that, but that's what Jersey Joe said. Yeah. I don't believe that. Before the cards come in, why the hell am I going to tell you you beat me? Come on, man. I think Jersey Joe made that up. But anyway, in 1949, Louis retired as champion, although financial troubles would force him back into the ring in the early 1950s. But he was just a shadow of himself then, okay? And then y'all know who it is for the 50s. I ain't even got to say it. For the 1950s, tune in tomorrow to find out. No, just kidding. 1950s is Rocky Marciano, The Rock. The Rock. Okay, bad man there. Owner of Suzy Q. You're going to see Suzy Q later on when we're talking about the best fights of the decade, okay? That's Rocky's right hand. The best fighter of the 50s, Rocky Marciano. Oh, man. And then, the Rise podcast in the building. See, I'm going to get fired, man. I missed the Rise podcast coming in. I might be doing my last show, depending on what kind of mood Miss Cass in. Salute to the Mighty Rise podcast in the building. I'm going to get fired, sure enough. I'm missing big heavyweights coming in, man. Damn. Okay, I'm going to pay more attention from now on. Salute to the Mighty Rise podcast. 9 o'clock weekdays, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. on Sundays. Okay? Yeah, now for the 1950s, Rocky Marciano, the greatest heavyweight fighter. Now, Rocky Marciano is the only man in boxing history to retire as the undefeated heavyweight champion, compiling a career record of 49 wins, no losses, 43 knockouts. I believe that's 89%. Let me see. Calculator right there. 430 divided by 49. 87.7, 88% might as well, if you round it off, right? Okay. Now, his standing among the all-time great heavyweight champions is compromised by his overall quality of competition, but he's not his fault, the era he fought in, so you cannot hold that against him. Okay. Now, but there's no doubt that he deserves to be acknowledged as the greatest heavyweight in the 1950s. No doubt. Who else? Okay, who else? Now, the Brockton Blockbuster, that's what they call him. He captured the belt in September 1952 with one of the most exciting knockouts in heavyweight history, Suzy Q. Trailing badly on the cards against the champion, Joe Walcott, Marciano connected with a sensational overhand right to knock Walcott out. Walcott was asleep before he hit the mat, and he was out for over 5 minutes, okay? Should I go up here and show you all that picture now, or should I wait? Because I might not never get back to where I'm at. I'm going to take a chance on it. There it is. That's what they talking about right there. See that? Walcott is asleep already. That's Susie Q in action. We're going to get back to that later on. That's the best fight of the 1950s. Let me see if I can find out where I was at. Say a prayer for me. Damn. Why did I do that? I should have just stayed where I was at. There it is. Right there. Yeah. Okay. Rocky Marciano. Now, yeah. That punch he hit Jersey Joe with, that overhand right was knocked him out cold. And he needed the knockout. Rocky needed the knockout at that point. Now, Marciano won the rematch the following May. Knocked Jersey Joe in the first round. That was in 1954. Then he beat former champion Ezzard Charles twice. Now, the first time he knocked everybody out in championship fights. Now, the first time he fought Ezzard Charles made it the distance. And Rocky did not have to rematch him because Rocky was the champion, defending champion. But he rematched him because and then he knocked him out. So I think he rematched him so he could knock him out. So he could say everybody he fought in championship fights, he knocked out, right? So he knocked him out in the rematch, right? And then in September 1955, he climbed off the canvas to knock out the legendary Archie Moore in 9 rounds. But Archie was the old mongoose by then. But in Rocky's defense, Archie was old, but after the Rocky fight, Archie fought 30 more times and only lost once. Okay, couldn't nobody else beat him. Now, Rocky retired in 1956. Unfortunately, just a little too early to face rising challenger Floyd Patterson. Yeah, that would have been a good one. I would pick Rocky in that one because Floyd had a suspect chin. And all Susie Q had to do is graze Floyd Patterson's chin. He going out. So I would pick Rocky against Floyd Patterson. Yeah. 1960s. Who y'all think the greatest heavyweight for the 1960s is? I don't know. Ingemar Johansson? George Chuvalo? Nope. The greatest. Muhammad Ali. The greatest heavyweight of the 1960s. Muhammad Ali. That's what my mother called him, Muhammad. Kensaw Love One in the building. What's up, Kensaw Love One? How are you today? Good to see you. And who is that coming next? Jarrell Hattie, of course. Y'all got to tell me something, man. God damn. Every day Kensaw Love One come in, Jarrell Hattie come right in next. But salute. They are big-time cast sports supporters, so yeah. Here every day. I appreciate them. Kensaw Love One and Jarrell Hattie in the building. Jarrell Hattie is part of that Four Kings of the Panel, too. Cast Sports, Jarrell Hattie, the legendary Thomas Hill, and Define Arnie One, the Four Kings of the Panel. Mm-hmm. Probably get a look at the Four Kings later on today on the panel. Yeah, Muhammad Ali, 1960s. Greatest fighter of that decade. Now, Muhammad Ali, then known as Cassius Clay, won the Olympic gold medal at light heavyweight in 1960 in Rome. Then he turned professional and developed into an exciting prospect in short order. Didn't take him long. Now, but the early part of the 60s was dominated by Sonny Liston, the big bear, right? A fearsome bear of a man. Now, Sonny captured the title by knockout over Floyd Patterson in 1 round in 1962. And then the following year, he won the rematch again in the first round, like in the carbon copy of the first. It was almost like the same fight. They didn't even have to fight. They could have just showed the second fight on film. 4 seconds earlier, just 4 seconds difference in the time of the round he knocked him out in. It was crazy, man. Watch those two fights and you can't tell whether you're watching the first one or the second one, man. It's crazy how those fights are so much alike. Just 4 seconds difference in the time he knocked him out. But anyway, back to Muhammad Ali in the 60s. The brass young fighter was given little chance when he faced Liston in February 1964. But his speed and movement thoroughly frustrated Liston, who quit on the stool after round 6. Okay? I think I heard somewhere that Liston was leading on the cards after. No way. You know Mafia involvement was in that. If Liston was leading that fight on the cards. I didn't have him winning not one round. I've seen it about 50 times. Liston didn't even win a round. But somebody told me they had him leading on the cards. I was only like 2 or 3 then, so I don't know, but damn. There had to have been Mafia involvement. No way Sonny Liston was winning that fight on no cards, man. Not really. But anyway, shortly after he beat Liston, Clay announced that he had joined the Nation of Islam. And he changed his name and became a cultural icon. First to the Black Pride movement, and then to the anti-war movement, when he refused to be inducted into the draft during the Vietnam War. Right? Now, Ali in the 60s became a figure who transcended the sport of boxing. But he was also the greatest heavyweight in history. He was a relatively large heavyweight for his era, and he had the speed of a middleweight, right? And the combination made him nearly untouchable. And if he wouldn't have had that 3 years off, he would have been unbeatable. Again, Joe Frazier wouldn't even been able to carry Muhammad Ali's spit bucket if he wouldn't have had them 3 years off. No way. Okay, in March of 1967, he was stripped of his belt for his position on the draft, right? And he spent the next 4 years exiled from the sport of boxing. But he still did enough during the decade to be the greatest heavyweight of the 1960s by a wide margin. A wide margin, okay? And guess what? We get to the 70s. Guess who the greatest heavyweight of the 70s was? Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali. Excuse me for 1 minute. Yeah. Yeah, but I think he was wrong the way he treated Joe Frazier, man. He went overboard because when he was out of boxing, couldn't earn money. Joe Frazier loaned him money to help him pay his bills. And when Ali got stripped, they had a tournament in 67 to see who would win his belts that was stripped from him. Joe Frazier protested and didn't even fight in the tournament because he said they did Muhammad Ali wrong. Joe Frazier said he supported the war in Vietnam, but Muhammad Ali had the right to believe what he wanted to believe in. So Joe Frazier didn't even fight in the tournament. He won the belts later off of Jimmy Ellis, who won the tournament after the tournament. And the way Joe Frazier supported him, man, Ali was wrong for the way he treated Joe Frazier. He went overboard with the trash. I know you trash talking stuff, but Ali went way overboard, man. Yes, he did. But let's talk about Ali in the 70s, okay? In the 70s now. Because he was the best heavyweight of the 60s and 70s. Yeah, I think. Mm-hmm. Now, the 1970s was the greatest decade in the history of the heavyweight division. No question about it. Mirror contenders like Jerry Quarry, Ron Lyle, and Ernie Shavers would have likely been world champions in any other decade, including this one we're in now. But they wasn't in the 70s, okay, because that was the greatest one of them all. Legitimately great champions like George Foreman and Joe Frazier, and later Ken Norton and Larry Holmes, they had their moments of glory as well. Yeah, Ken Norton beat Ali 3 times. He only got credit for 1. But once again, this was Ali's decade. He returned from exile in 1971. In March, he lost the first fight of his career to Smoking Joe Frazier. And he had his jaw broken and suffered his second loss to Ken Norton in 1972, right? But he beat both men twice in rematches during the 70s, okay? And his third and final fight with Joe Frazier in 1975 is considered by many boxing historians and Cash Sports The Box Story to be the greatest fight of all time. Mm-hmm. Ain't no question about that. And that's going to be definitely the greatest fight of the 70s when we get to it, if we get to it. It's after 3 o'clock. In 1974, Ali became just the second man to reclaim the heavyweight title after losing it when he stunned the boxing universe beating the seemingly invincible George Foreman by around 8 KO. Everybody was saying, Ali, don't let him have it. You don't need to be you don't need to be champion again. Don't get in there with that monster. Because George Foreman was just destroying everybody, man. Nobody was going past 2 rounds with him. You know? And what was Ali going to do? You know, Ali was getting up there in age a little, and he had slowed down. He didn't have the same, and he missed those 3 years, and we just thought George Foreman could possibly kill Ali in that ring. But hey, Ali had something for him, man, the rope-a-dope. Yep, he had something for him. In 1978, Ali suffered a shocking upset loss to boxing novice Leon Spinks, who only had 7 fights, right? But Ali won the rematch later in the year to become the first 3-time heavyweight champion in history. Yeah, that cemented it there. When he got that 3rd time being heavyweight champion, yeah, then the decade belonged to him after that. Yeah, nobody else. Now, who do you think it is in the 80s? Got to be Iron Mike Tyson. Best heavyweight for the 80s, Iron Mike Tyson. Yep, Iron Mike Tyson. There he is. Came along at the right time after Ali. Well, the 4 Kings felt the void first when Ali went out. You know, boxing needed a shot in the arm, and that's when the 4 Kings, you know, Leonard, Duran, Hagler, and Hearns. And then Iron Mike came along. So boxing was good. For the 1980s, there are 2 clear-cut candidates for this honor: Larry Holmes and Iron Mike Tyson. And for younger fans, there's nowhere near as obvious as it might seem. This is nowhere near as obvious as it might seem. But anyway, a lot of people put Holmes over Tyson, you know, and I ain't mad at you. Now, Tyson destroyed Holmes when they fought, but Holmes was past his prime at that time. I would say prime Holmes and prime Tyson, I might pick Holmes. Might actually pick Holmes. But the 80s belong to Mike Tyson, you know. But 3 of Holmes' biggest wins came in the 1970s, okay? His championship win over Ken Norton was in the 70s, and his 2 wins over Ernie Shavers was in the 70s. Now, he had plenty of big moments during the 1980s, including his round 13 TKO of the previously unbeaten wrecking machine, Jerry Cooney, but promotional monkey business prevented him from ever unifying the title, okay? Don King. Now, Holmes came within 1 win of tying Rocky Marciano's 49-0 record, which I think he won against Michael Spinks. Yeah, he was 48-0 and he lost that 49th fight to Michael Spinks. Yep. Came within 1 win of that, right? And I think he passed it, right? But he had 2 losses to Michael Spinks. But Holmes had a great first half of the 80s. But in the second half of the decade, Tyson exploded onto the scene. Under the tutelage of Cus D'Amato, he developed into a near-perfect fighter for his compact, athletically explosive frame. Okay? Tyson became the first undisputed heavyweight champion since Ali. And he's right up there with Ali, Joe Louis, Jack Dempsey, and John L. Sullivan as one of the 5 champions who had the most impact on popular culture, for sure. Now, at the end of the decade, Tyson stood atop the division and looked like he would continue to do so for years to come. Then he lost to Buster Douglas in February 1990. It was one of the most shocking upsets in the history of not just boxing, in the history of sports. And Mike was never the same after that loss, right? And he admitted that mentally, he was never the same after that. That invincibility went away. Everybody wanted to fight Mike Tyson. Then after Buster Douglas beat him. But that Buster Douglas right there that beat Mike Tyson would have beat Holyfield, Lewis, Bo, all of them. But we never seen that Buster Douglas again. You know, big, rangy heavyweight, had that jab, man. And he could change speeds on that jab, man. He could throw different variations of it. He had that right hand behind it. He was not intimidated by Tyson. that Buster Douglas would have been a problem at heavyweight. But the only problem was we never saw that Buster Douglas again. Holyfield destroyed him in the next fight. They say Buster Douglas ballooned up to like 400 pounds in between the Tyson Holyfield fight. He didn't want it. He didn't want greatness. Because the Buster Douglas would be, and everybody say that Mike wasn't in shape and took him lightly. That wasn't all it. Buster Douglas was that Buster Douglas there was great, man. Go back and watch that fight. Jay Hardcore tell you he saw it. That Buster Douglas would have been a problem, but we never don't. Like I said, the only problem was we never saw that Buster Douglas again. But let's go to the 90s. Now, it might be a little controversy with Bo, Holyfield, all of them in the 90s. But I would say Lennox Lewis. Best heavyweight in the 90s? Yeah. Lennox the Lion Lewis. Anybody agree? Oh, there's RP. What's up, Ray Patterson? Straight out of New Jersey. RP is in the building. We talking about great heavyweights and great heavyweight fights today, RP. We're up to the 2000s, but we still got the fights. Best heavyweight in the 90s, I say Lennox the Lion Lewis. Yeah. Now, if Bo would have fought him and beat him, Bo might have this honor. But that let Bo out for me when he ducked Lennox. And don't say they tried to lowball Bo, because Lennox was the one who got the lowball offer, not Bo. I think Bo was scared of him, man. What else could it be? I can't see no reason why he threw the belt in the trash. That would have done so much for Bo's legacy if he would have just got in the ring and fought Lennox, not just beat him, just fought him. You know? I think Riddick Bowe was scared of Lennox Lewis. Okay, there it is. 1990s Lennox Lewis. The 1990s can't quite match the 1970s for heavyweight talent, but it was a golden era nonetheless. For a brief period, Riddick Bowe looked like an emerging all-time great. But Riddick was lazy. Riddick, just like Buster Douglas, Riddick didn't want greatness. Riddick did not want it. Man. He had all the skills to be an all-time great. Razor Ruddock, Tony Tucker, Oliver McCall, and Shannon Briggs were among the very tough contenders on the scene at that time, with McCall and Briggs staying relevant well into the next decade, up into the 2000s, right? Now, Michael Moorer, Tommy Morrison, and Ray Mercer were all talented world champions during the 90s. Mike Tyson spent the first half of the decade in prison on a rape charge. And when he came home, he was nowhere near the talent he had been as a young man. But he was still on the scene. He was still an exciting factor on the scene. And he did manage to become champion again, remember? Yeah, Mike became champion again. Yep. And then even 40-something George Foreman and Larry Holmes had moments of greatness in the 90s. Foreman came from behind to knock out Michael Moorer for the title. He became the oldest man at that time, remember? 45. And Holmes gave Ray Mercer a boxing lesson that he never saw coming. And Holmes was damn near like 50 then. But the decade comes down to two names. The real deal, Evander Holyfield, and Lennox the Lion Lewis. Now, both men accumulated resumes during the decade that deserve consideration for inclusion among the division's all-time greats. And when they met head-to-head, Lewis was clearly the better man. They faced off for the first time in March 1999, with the fight ending in a very, 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 very controversial draw. Lewis won that one. Come on, man. They had that woman, what's her name, Eugenia Williams. One round, Lewis had like 50 connects. The Holyfield had like single digits, and she gave it around to Holyfield. They was like, where were you at during the round? Were you in the bathroom somewhere? Were you even at ringside? Lewis had like 50. Holyfield had single digits, like 6. And she gave the round to Holyfield. Yeah. And she gave the fight to Holyfield. So, man, I don't know what she was doing. She was terrible. She was terrible. Right? And so, but that was one of the worst decisions of the decade. worst decisions in boxing history. And Lewis deserved to win, right? And nobody never disputed that. Everybody say Lewis should have won that fight, man. Everybody. Okay? So then when they fought a rematch the following November, this time Lewis won by clear decision. So Lewis gets it for the 90s. And then from the 2000s up to the present, no active fighters. So we're going to say Vitaly. Because Vitaly had the title for almost the entire decade, remember? Yeah. Vitaly Klitschko wins it from 2000s to the present. Okay? And this comes down to one question. Which brother do you prefer? Vladimir or Vitaly? Because it's going to be one of them, right? Vitaly is the oldest, right? Yeah. Younger brother Vladimir has more wins and more world titles. Vitaly took a chunk of this century off to recuperate from injuries. But Vladimir has 3 losses by knockout on his record. He's been dominant most of the time, but no boxing fan will ever forget the potential vulnerability of his chin, right? And Vitaly's only 2 losses came on a shoulder injury against Chris Bird in April 2000 and on cuts against Lennox Lewis in June 2003. In both fights, Vitaly was winning on the cards at the time of the stoppages. Yep, he was winning on both cards. Now, Lennox Lewis gets full credit for busting Klitschko up badly enough to stop the fight. But Lennox walked away from a lot of money and retired rather than fight a rematch with Vitaly. So that says something. And Vitaly barely lost a round since that Lennox Lewis fight. After that Lennox Lewis fight, right? So he gets the nod. And they never fought, right? So now let's look at the greatest fights of the heavyweight division of every decade. Oh, man. Yeah, there it is. I was looking for my cursor. Just looked up there by InStream. That's where it was at. I don't know why it always goes up there. Up in the corner. Okay, best heavyweight fights of the decades. From 1880s all the way up. Okay, hope everybody's enjoying the show today. Tomorrow is boxing in the States, North Carolina. I can't find much on North Carolina, so it might be talk about some boxers from North Carolina and then look at the best boxer from each state tomorrow. I saved that for a state I can't find much. The best boxer from each state tomorrow, maybe. Boxing in the States, right? The best boxer from each state. Let's look at these fights. The best heavyweight fight from every decade. Now we're going to start at 2010 to the present and go backwards this time. Okay, we're going to go backwards. Since we're already up here. That's Artur Zapilka versus Mike Marlowe. I might need to put that in there. I know that ain't right. Let me put Artur's name in there. First name is like Beterbiev. Artur. I think it's right though. Artur Zapilka. SZPI. Oh no, not D. SZPI. LKA. There it is. Now let's go. Him. He's in this fight. Artur. That's right in it. Zapilka. Yeah, Mike Grimm. What's up, Mike Grimm? In the building today. We get ready to talk about some of the greatest heavyweight fights of every decade, Mike. We already talked about the heavyweights. I mean, the fighters. Now the fights. Let's salute Mike Grimm. In the building. I gotta take a drink. Oh, damn. It's empty. Ain't nothing in there. Little corner left. Okay. Okay, now let's go. I wish Miss Cass was listening. She could bring me a cooler. Okay. Oh, Mike. Okay, yeah. Everything go good, Mike? Yeah, I was at the VA the other day, Mike. Where were you in, Mike? Appreciate your service, bro. I was a Zoomie. I was in 6 years in the 8 USAFE, United States Air Force. Okay. Let's talk about these fights. Arthur Zapilka knocked out Mike Mahler. This was the second fight. No. February 1st, 2013. Best fight from 2010 to the present, okay? None of the active fights are in here. There they go. That's Mike Mahler on the left. Zapilka on the right. Okay? Now, just briefly. Nothing no big alarm, okay? I ain't trying to bore my peoples. Now, the two fight series, it was two of them. This was two. Excuse me. The two fight series between Arthur Zapilka, excuse me, and Mike Mahler in 2013 was extremely valuable for reviving interest in the heavyweight division. Now, both fights were broadcast on Friday Night Fights, right? Giving American fans a pleasant reminder of how exciting a heavyweight brawl can be. Fought at U.S. Cellular Field in Chicago. This was a hometown rivalry, to be sure. Mahler is a Chicago native, and the Polish Zapilka has made the Windy City his North American home, right? Both from Chicago, right? Both was living in Chicago at the time, right? And Zapilka was wildly popular with the city's large boxing mad Polish community. Yeah, Chicago had a lot of Polish fans, right? Now, Mahler came out on fire against the undefeated prospect, dropping him twice before Zapilka caught up to the game, right? And he put Zapilka away with 2:45 left in round 6. Now, the rematch was fought later in the year. It was nearly as good. Zapilka won by round 5 stoppage after surviving another early knockdown. So both fights were similar. Mahler put Zapilka on the mat a couple times in the first fight, and then Zapilka won by 6-round knockout. And then the second fight, Mahler put him on the mat early again one time, and Zapilka won by 5th-round stoppage this time. So two fights very similar. From 2000 to 2009 was the fight we talked about in the other just now. Lennox Lewis and Vladimir Klitschko. Yeah. Lennox Lewis and Vladimir Klitschko. Where my cooler at, Miss Cass? You on here? I see you talking to Mike Mo, Mike Rim. Hope everything went well with you bringing my cooler in here. But yeah, Mike, hope you're doing good there, bro. I was down at VA that day I was late. Was that yesterday? Yeah. Don't they, Mike, when they give you an appointment at the VA, they give 50 people at the same time. Mike know what I'm talking about. The VA is the same every damn where, man. Yeah. Okay. Lennox Lewis and Vitaly Klitschko. This was in June 21st, 2003. Remember, Lennox won by 6-round TKO because Vitaly was cut up, remember? We just talked about that one. So let's go to the next one. Remember, we talked about Vitaly was winning on all the cards, and he got cut up bad, and he couldn't continue. And then Lennox retired. They offered Lennox a whole lot of money to fight Vitaly again, but Lennox decided to retire and turned down the money. Why not take the money for one more fight and then retire? Unless you were scared. You scared? Say you scared. Best fight of the 1990s at heavyweight was Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield. Won the first fight, not the Fan Man fight. This was won. Bowe won a unanimous decision over Holyfield. Right now, for fans, younger fans, you know, who was too young to remember the great fights of the 1970s. Evander Holyfield and Riddick Bowe, their rivalry was those fans' consolation. The first two of their three fights stand alongside the greatest of all time. Now, although the second fight, won by Holyfield by majority decision, was closer on the cards, the first fight was still better. Nearly every second of the entire fight was a hard, contested battle. Every second, man, yeah. Holyfield was in his classic pit bull mode, getting right in the larger man's face and attempting to impose his will, right? And Holyfield was a smaller man, but he got right up in Bowe's face. Now, the Bowe who won this fight would have been a tough opponent for any heavyweight who ever lived, right? But kind of like Buster Douglas, I told you, we really didn't see that first Bowe. He won the third fight, but he was at his best in that first Holyfield fight. That was the best Riddick Bowe I ever saw. Yeah, Holyfield won. But just like Douglas, Bowe didn't want the greatness, man. He had all the tools, but he didn't want it. The best heavyweight fight for the 1980s, Mike Weaver and Big John Tate. Yep. March 31st, 1980, right at the beginning of the decade. Weaver stopped Tate in the 15th round. 15th round. Now, the late 1970s and first part of the 1980s were dominated by Larry Holmes, but there were other high-class big men and belt holders of the era also, right? And the heavyweight crop of the decade gets underrated as a whole because they were between the 1970s and the 1990s. That's why the 80s get overshadowed so much, right? And the best heavyweight fighter this decade was Mike Weaver. That's Big John Tate on the left. No, that's Big John Tate on the left and Mike Weaver on the right. Okay, yeah. And that was the best heavyweight fight for the 1980s. Okay. And I think Tate was auditioning for a big fight with he was going to get a Muhammad Ali fight, a big money fight. All he had to do was win that fight, man. But he got stopped in the 15th round. And Weaver went on to stardom. Never heard from Tate again. Big John Tate was on that 76 Olympic team, wasn't he? Yeah, but Weaver won this one by 15th round knockout. For the 70s, you know what the best fight for the 70s is. The Thriller in Manila. I don't even need no notes to talk about that one. Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali. This was the rubber match, right? Frazier won the first fight in 71. 71 was the most iconic because, Ali was like the anti-war representative. Frazier was the Vietnam War representative. And Frazier tried to go in the military, but he got denied because of some kind of disability. Now, how can you have some kind of disability, can't get in the military, but you can fight? That's crazy, ain't it? That's what I heard. Bruce Gass told me that. So I believe it. But that's crazy. But he didn't get in the military. Donnie Williams in the building. What's up, Donnie Williams? But that was the most iconic. But the best was 75. There's a difference between being the most iconic and being the best, right? Iconic is like legacy type situation, being recognized, popular. That's iconic. But best is just being the best, and they're grinding it out. And that was definitely the Thriller in Manila, The one in 71 was so iconic. On the 30th year anniversary in 2001, the two daughters fought. And Ali Frazier fought. Later, Ali and Jackie Frazier lied. Now, that's iconic. After you retire, your two daughters fight on the anniversary of your fight. You can't get no more iconic than that, right? But anyway, Frazier won that one by unanimous decision. He got that knockdown in the 15th round, sealed the deal, but I think he still had it. I think Frazier still had it, but that knockdown in the 15th round did not hurt. Okay? That did not hurt. But salute, Donnie Williams. How are you? Okay. 60s. Best heavyweight fight from the 1960s was I went backwards. Damn. Oh, come on, man. Before I get mad. Get mad at the phone. Damn. Already doing the show from the side of the bed. I gotta get my new desk in. Took the old one down and should have just left the old one up till after the show. I said, I'm gonna get it done, but didn't get the new one in, so damn. Doing the show from the side of the bed. That's better than Jay Hardcore in that chair he had. What you say, was sitting on a speaker? I just ain't got no back. Okay, 1960 best fight. Floyd Patterson and Ingemar Johansson. Which one was that? Let me see. I got it written down. Floyd Patterson and Ingemar Johansson. One. This was the first one between Floyd and Ingemar. Okay. Both ended in knockout. All three ended in knockouts. They had three. Yeah. This was a shocker because nobody expected Ingemar to win this fight. It was on March 31st, 1961. Right at the beginning of the decade again, yeah. And Floyd was the first man to win the heavyweight title twice, right? Lost it and win it back. He was also the youngest heavyweight champion in history at age 21, before Mike Tyson took that honor at 20 in 87, I think it was, right? And Floyd and Mike was also trained by the same man, Cus D'Amato. Mm-hmm. And a lot of parallels there. Yeah. Now, Floyd's first run as champion ended in 1959 when he ran into Ingemar Johansson's brutal right hand. Johansson was Swedish, and he called the punch his Thunder and frightening. Okay, I don't know what that calls. Others called it the hammer of Thor. He rocked Patterson with the punch in round 3 of their first meeting, and he knocked him down 7 times in round 3, right? 7 times in one round before winning by TKO. Now, of course, Patterson came back the next year and knocked Johansson out to retain the title. And then the rubber match was a straight slugfest. Johansson knocked Patterson down twice in the first round. But Patterson recovered and dropped Johansson in the next round, at the end of the first round, right? And after 5 more hard-fought rounds, Patterson put Johansson down for the count in round 6 to win the fight, okay? Now the 50s, of course, the one I was talking about earlier. Rocky Marciano and Jersey Joe. There they are. Rocky Marciano and Jersey Joe. Jersey Joe is already asleep. Okay? That's Susie Q there. And he was out for like 5 minutes. That's my favorite boxing picture. Now, Rocky took some damage too now. Look at him. It was a hard, tough fight. Jersey Joe was ahead at the time of the stoppage. Yeah. And, you know, like I said, Rocky was the only man to ever retire undefeated. Okay. And that nickname he had, he definitely deserved it. And his right hand was named Susie Q, right? And round Jersey Joe was leading on all cards. And Jersey Joe had said something like, if he loses this fight to Rocky, just take his name out the record books, right? So I wonder if it's in there. But anyway, round 13, Rocky finally caught up with Walcott, scoring one of the most iconic knockouts in boxing history, right? And Rocky was one of those fighters where you had to be perfect every second, like a tank, you know? You got to be perfect every second because you all Rocky need is one and it's over. And Jersey Joe found out the hard way. For the 40s, Joe Louis and Billy Conn. Yeah, Billy Conn was crazy, man. He was a fool. This man outboxed Joe Louis for 12 rounds and then decided in round 13 he wanted to go toe-to-toe with him and got knocked out cold. In 1941, the flashy, slick light heavyweight champion, Billy Conn, came extremely close to altering the entire course of boxing history. When he moved up to challenge legendary heavyweight champion Joe Louis, because he wouldn't have had those 25 title defenses, that 12-year run, none of that would have happened. For the first 12 rounds of the fight, Khan used his speed to move in and out of range, frustrating the most dominant heavyweight champion to ever lace up the gloves, right? He was giving Joe Louis a boxing lesson. But Khan could not leave well enough alone and protect his lead in the championship rounds. All he had was 2 more rounds. No, 13, 14, 15, 3 more rounds, right? Somehow, he got it into his head that he should go for broke and attempt to knock out Louis. He wanted to put the icing on the cake. I gave him a boxing lesson for 12 rounds. Now I'm going to knock his ass out. Yeah, okay, Billy Khan. As a result, when round 13 started, he abandoned his stick and move strategy and started standing in front of Louis, trading with the much bigger man. Remember, Khan was a light heavyweight. That was his first fight at heavyweight, right? But he chose in round 13 to stand toe-to-toe with Louis right in front of him and trade with him. This was the worst mistake he could have ever made, right? To stand there stationary in front of Louis, right? And it did not take long for Louis to knock him out with his always dangerous right hand, okay? Immediately, Louis staggered Khan with a big right hand to the top of his head as soon as the round began, right? It was over then. Khan was hurt. Seeing this guy now wounded, Louis finished him off with a furious volley of punches, putting the challenger down for the count at 2:58 of the round. Okay, didn't take him long. 2:58. Hurt him immediately. As soon as the round started, he hurt him, and got him up out of there. All Khan had to do was keep doing what he was doing. He would have altered history. Like I said, Joe Louis wouldn't have had that 25, because that was right in the middle of that, in the 40s. He wouldn't have had that 25 fight winning streak. 1941, it would have never really got started. This was 1941. He just won it in 38. He wouldn't have had that 12-year reign, none of that. But that had to have been fixed, man. Why would he do that? He had to have been paid to do that. Nobody never mentions the fix of it, but I think it was fixed. Why would you, after your strategy working for 12 rounds, all of a sudden you're going to just stand in front of Joe Louis and go toe-to-toe with him? He had to have been paid, man. You can't tell me that wasn't fixed. Had to be. What y'all think? That had to have been fixed. The man had to fight one. What's up, Ant McQueen? Then the Ant, that had to have been fixed. He had Joe Louis beat, was giving him a boxing lesson. Then in round 13, he decided to abandon that and stand in front of him. So, yeah, man, I think that was a fixed fight. Why would he do that? Other than the mob had got to him before the fight and told him, you better lose. He said, oh, shoot, I'm winning. And after 12 rounds, and then he said, I got to lose. So he went out there and stood toe-to-toe with Joe Louis. I can't think of any other reason why somebody would do that, you know. You'd have moved up from light heavyweight. You're 3 rounds away from being heavyweight champion. The champion needs a knockout, and the champion is none other than the Brown Bomber Joe Louis. Why would you abandon your strategy and blow all of that other than the fight was fixed? That's the only thing I really believe that, man. Why would he do that? I just don't understand it. Okay, for the 1930s, it was Jim Braddock and Max Baer. Max Baer. Yeah, Max Baer had killed 2 people where they died from injuries suffered against him in the ring. Yeah, The first one, Max was at the hospital in the room with the man's wife when he died, and his wife forgave him. Yeah, his wife forgave him because it's boxing, you know. His wife understood that. Yeah. Now, Jim Braddock and Max Baer. Now, it could have been Joe Louis, that round one knockout of Max Smelling, remember, in their rematch. But this was also a good fight here. Because that fight wasn't much of a fight, you know, so you really can't call it the best fight of the decade. Now, this one, James Braddock went over champion Max Baer. Max Baer was the champion at the time. This was in June 13th, 1935. Okay. Yeah, June 13th, 1935. Yankee Stadium. This wasn't much of a fight either, though. Because it was okay. Anyway, they called Braddock the Cinderella Man, okay? And he was emblematic of the era in his own way. Now, at the height of the Depression, he was a heavy underdog coming into this fight. And he became a surprise hero to the nation, right? This was really what the Cinderella Man came from, this fight right here with Max Baer. An overconfident and undertrained Max Baer got far more than he bargained for against the determined Braddock. Now, it still took an incredibly gutsy effort for Braddock to grind out this fight, right, and beat the bigger, more athletic champion. Plus, Max Baer had pop. But it remains one of the biggest upsets in heavyweight history. Yep. Yeah, and it was a 15-round unanimous decision. Cinderella Man. And Max Baer's son, you know, Jethro from the Beverly Hillbillies, Max Baer Jr., he tried to sue the people that made the movie because of the way his father was depicted in the movie. Yeah. 1920s was Jack Dempsey and Louis Firpo. September 14th, 1923. This fight had like 11 knockdowns, right? And guess how many rounds it went? 2. 11 knockdowns, and it just went 2 rounds. That's crazy. And like I said, Jack Dempsey trailed only Babe Ruth as the biggest sports star in the country, right? Called the Manasseh Mauler. He fought with a reckless, frantic style, right? And just enchanted boxing fans. And it allowed him to establish record gates that would not be approached for decades, right? He was sold out, had $1 million gate back in 1921. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Now, showdown with the Wild Bull, Louis Firpo, was his most anticipated fight, and it more than lived up to the billing, right? Noted boxing historian Nat Fleischer called it the most dramatic fight in the history of the heavyweight division, right? Now, Dempsey floored the game Firpo 7 times in the first round. 7 times in the first round. The battered and bloody Firpo kept coming. And the giant Argentine, he knocked Dempsey completely out of the ring. So that's 8 knockdowns in the first round before the end of the opening round, okay? Then Dempsey came back and scored 2 more knockdowns in round 2. That's 10, right? In 2 rounds. So it was 10 knockdowns in 2 rounds. The second knockdown of the 10th round, Firpo was out for the count. So 10 knockdowns in 2 rounds. 8 by Dempsey. No, 9 by Dempsey, 1 by Firpo. He knocked Dempsey completely out the ring. It was toward the end of the round, and when Dempsey got back into the ring, the round had ended. And he was a little dazed. He went to his corner and asked his corner who won the fight. And they said, no, it's still going on, Jack. That was just the end of the first round. Yeah, Jack didn't know who won the round. Okay? Okay, let's see. Oh, shoot, 3:45. Oh, man. Damn. I blew right past 3:30. Why didn't somebody tell me? Okay, 19. We got a couple more. I guess we're going to get into today. 1910, 1919. Jack Johnson and Jim Jeffries. We talked about that, remember? That was the one where They recruited Jim Jeffries to get the belt away from the first African American champion because he had retired undefeated, remember? No, that's not the one. That's the one before that. This was Jim Jeffries. Yeah, this was the one. Yeah, they recruited Jim Jeffries because he retired undefeated, and they recruited him to try to get the belt away from Johnson to come out of retirement and get it, but he couldn't. He was not successful. Yeah, there you go. He was not successful at it. And this fight was the most anticipated fight in boxing history up to that point. Okay? Records were set for fighter pay. Okay? Johnson made $100,000. That was a lot for 1910 to 1920. You got to remember what time it was. And the fight itself was all Johnson. Right? He just got it in, taunted Jeffries and everything, man. It was bad, but Johnson was known for that. And then in 1909, Joe Jeanette, Sam McVeigh, April 17th, 1909. These were two of those African-American fighters that were well avoided by everybody back then, okay? It was Joe Jeanette, Sam McVeigh, Sam Langford, and Harry Wills. And so, like I said, they had to fight each other repeatedly. Okay? Had to fight each other repeatedly. And Jeanette won this fight by TKO in the 49th round. Yep, 49th round TKO by Joe Jeanette. Yeah, couldn't get a good picture because this we talking 1909. You know, there you go. And that was the final one. Yeah, that's the final one of the day. Okay, great heavyweight fights and fighters. I was going to do the best fighter period of every decade, but we done ran out of time. But tomorrow is boxing in the States, North Carolina. I couldn't find much of boxing history at all in North Carolina, so it might be the best boxer from every state. How about that? The best boxer from every state. Yeah, that's what we're gonna look at some boxers from North Carolina first. Then we're gonna go to the best boxer from every state. And it's not gonna be by born in each state because some fighters, like Sugar Ray Leonard, a perfect example. He was living in Maryland when his boxing career played out, but he was born in North Carolina. So if we do him, he'll be the best boxer from Maryland. Maybe. Okay. But it wouldn't be North Carolina because he was born there. Then he left there at 3 years old. Okay. Like Evander Holyfield was born in Alabama, but he lived in Georgia during his career. Right. Sugar Ray Robinson was born in Georgia, but his career played out New York and Michigan, right? The Hitman was born down south, Tennessee, I think, Tommy Hearns, but he's known for Michigan. So no, he would be representing Michigan instead of Tennessee, right? Yeah, it's a few of them like that. But I would go for where their career played out at rather than where they were born, right? Yeah, because we don't know Thomas Hearns for no Tennessee. He's known from that Kronk Gym up there in Detroit, right? Emmanuel Stewart, all that. So how would you say Thomas Hearns is the best boxer from Tennessee? They'd be like, what is another Thomas Hearns or something? And then Friday is the Hitman is a profile Friday, but not Thomas Hearns. The Hitman Ricky Hatton. Yep. He had a great career. Got a son that's a fighter, Campbell. I don't know what's out there for Campbell though, because he's at 140 right now, and I don't know Campbell. Then if he goes up, he's at 147. So, I don't know Campbell, but hey, he's a boxer. You never know. He might get turned into a killer all of a sudden, Okay, but we are winding down toward Just Do Boxing at 4 p.m. today. Appreciate everybody. for stopping by today. Yeah, tomorrow is going to be the best boxer from every state. Because North Carolina, I tried. I can't find nothing, no kind of history for North Carolina. They got a boxing commission, though. Yeah. But as far as when the first fight and fights that happened there, nothing, man. I can't find anything about that. We had a good one last week, New York. Anybody that didn't see it, need to go back and look at that. Yeah. We had some big fights up there. We had like 20 boxers, picked out 20 boxers from New York. And we had a little history, a long history from New York. Talked about the Frawley Law, the Walker Law. All that came from New York, right? The Frawley Law legalized boxing, and then it got outlawed, and then the Walker Law re-legalized it, right? Then the New York State Athletic Commission came along. That was one of the big sanctioning bodies of the time, along with the NBA, which became the WBA. Yeah, those were the main two big ones. And the NBA was formed to take some of the, because the New York Athletic Commission was like dominating boxing, and then some other states got together and formed the NBA to give the New York State Athletic Commission some competition, you know. Then we had like the California state title, the Mexican state title. They were the minor titles, you know. Different states had the different titles. And, you know, then remember the NBA became the WBA in 1962. Then the WBC came along. And then around 82, the IBF. Around 89, the WBO. Now, it took some years before the other three recognized the WBO. They didn't become a major sanctioning body until like 2004. They was around for like 14, 15 years before the other three. You know, it was always 3 belt. Remember? Fighters had them. Like, I think Riddick Bowe had all 4 of them. But he was the first man to have all 4, but they wasn't recognized in WBO, so he was only 3 belt undisputed at that time. Yeah, but I think he had all 4. I don't know if it was always at the same time, but he was the first man to win all 4. But I know he wasn't recognized in the WBO as a major sanctioning body at that time neither. Let me stop. I'm confusing myself. I know Riddick Bowe had all 4, but he wasn't 4 belt undisputed, okay? B-Hop was the first one to do that. However it worked out. Riddick Bowe was the first one to have all 4 of them. Okay. All right. Tomorrow is Salute Crush the Legend. But I'm way back up at the beginning of the chat. Yeah. Next week, Thomas Hill. I meant to announce that, yeah. Next Wednesday, it's going to start the School of Boxing. What it is, you know, different countries, some different countries have boxing schools, and we're going to do a series on that starting next Wednesday with the Cuban Boxing School. Thank you, Thomas Hill, for reminding me. I meant to announce that today because it's Wednesday, yeah. Next Wednesday will be the Cuban Boxing School, brought to you by Thomas Hill. Yeah. And we're going to do a different one each week. Okay? Yep. The Cuban Boxing School next Wednesday. Brought to you by Thomas T. Hill. Okay? Yep. Thank you, T. Hill, because I had forgot. I meant to announce that today. That it was going to start next Wednesday. Yeah. Yeah, Wednesday is the day for the chat shows. But yeah, next Wednesday. The Cuban Boxing School. That's a great place to start. You talk about boxing schools. That's a big one there. That's why a lot of those Cuban boxers get fast tracked. Look at Morella in his 11th fight. He's going for the big title in a few weeks. As a matter of fact, like I was saying, the week after next is fight week, right? Not next week, but the week after next is fight week for Morel and Benavidez. The big one. Yeah. Right up on us. Because they don't have to go into February. As soon as February get here, February the 1st, they are getting in there, man. I'm excited for that one. Yeah, we've been wanting it. I'm not one to say Morrell isn't ready. I'm saying, hey, the man says he's ready. Sign on the contract. And we'll find out. Only one way to find out, right? In that squared circle. And now we are going to find out. The week after is fight week for David versus David. I'm kind of leaning Benavidez now. Yeah. But, Morrell, I would say, he has the tools to get the win, Would have to be, certain things would have to go a certain way, but, he can do it. I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't be no big shocker, I don't think. But I would call it an upset. I would call it an upset if Morrell wins, yeah. I would call it an upset. Yeah. Okay. But we are getting ready to hit the road. I'm going to get me another cooler since I never got it. I hear myself on Miss Cat's phone down the hall, but she must not be on it. I never got my cooler. Okay. Ant McQueen, Donnie Williams, Mike Rim, Ray Patterson, Jarrell Hattie, Ken Saw Love One, The Rise Podcast. Oh, I thought you was bringing my cooler. Define already won. Crush the Legend. Thomas Hill, hashtag JBT. Al Booger. Ace. J Hardcore. Mike Frazier. Oh, that's supposed to be Mike Masick. I got Mike Frazier. I was looking at Joe Frazier when I was writing Mike's name, but that's Mike Masick. Technique. And Miss Cass, hashtag JBT. And there's my cooler. In 2 minutes, I could have got it myself, but it's all good. Thank you, honey. Okay. Mike Masick, Technique, and Miss Cass, hashtag JBT. Join me tomorrow. Because if it's Monday through Friday at 2 p.m., it's The Boxtorian bringing you all that boxing history. Appreciate everybody. Just do boxing straight ahead. Everybody have a great afternoon. And I'll see y'all around these JBT streets. Now I'm going to bring my new guest in here. Everybody have a great day. Oh, yeah, I knew it. Am I off?